Where can you find the best Hollywood Studios secrets? What shortcuts are hiding inside this Disney World park? And when can you check out the busiest sections when they're completely empty? Find out the things you should always do in Hollywood Studios today on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we're going to Hollywood. Well, kind of. We're actually on the complete opposite coast from the real Hollywood, but regardless, Disney's Hollywood Studios is still a place where you can become part of your favorite Disney films in a completely new and immersive way. So just to make sure you have an awesome visit to Disney's Hollywood Studios every time you're there, we've got a complete list of the things you should always do in this park, so your best day ever track record remains intact. First up, of course, you gotta see what's new. You might love this about Hollywood Studios, or it might make you slightly uncomfortable. But whatever the case may be, there's no denying that this park is constantly changing. So very rarely will you ever experience the same Hollywood Studios day twice. So what changes do you need to be on the lookout for? New rides and attractions for sure, or even updates of rides and shows that were already there. Star Tours, for example, added some new ride scenes with Disney Plus characters this past April, so now you have the opportunity to see characters and locations straight from shows like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Andor. Sometime later this year, a whole new version of The Little Mermaid show, The Little Mermaid: A Musical Adventure, is going to debut. The new version of the show will feature a combo of live actors, puppets, digital animation, and even some live motion capture. Some characters are going to be a mix of all of these styles. For example, there's going to be a practical puppet Ursula, as well as a larger-than-life digital version for the climactic battle finale. There will also be 2 more songs that weren't in the original show at Hollywood Studios, Daughters of Triton and Kiss the Girl. When it comes to food, Hollywood Studios is all about the seasonal offerings and limited time releases. So depending on what time of year you visit, you're going to have uniquely specialty shakes over at Hollywood Scoops, seasonal lunchbox tarts from Woody's Lunchbox, exclusive cookies across various Joffrey's locations around the park, like the Terror cookie we recently tasted at the Joffrey's right outside the Tower of Terror exit, or the animal cookie we picked up from the Joffrey's in Pixar Plaza. You've also got rotating gelato flavors at the Gelato Cart outside Muppet Vision 3D, and tons more limited time goodies that we're going to let you know about via our DFB newsletter as soon as they are announced. These are going to be seasonal things, stuff for Halloween and Christmas. So we are on top of it for you. Just join the newsletter. Even the Hollywood Studios restaurants can take on major changes throughout the year, like the character dining experience Hollywood and Vine, for example. Hollywood and Vine celebrates Minnie's Seasonal Dine, which updates the character costumes and the vibe of the dining room decor to fit with the season. Next thing you want to do always in Hollywood Studios is check the showtimes first thing. Attractions aren't the only things subject to change inside the studios. This park is a very show-heavy park. While some shows will run pretty much all day long, like Muppet Vision 3D and Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy when it's open, other shows like Beauty and the Beast Live on Stage, Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, the Frozen Sing-Along Celebration, and Disney Junior Dance Party will only happen at select times throughout the day, so you're gonna need to check your My Disney Experience app to make sure you don't miss out on these. This is even more important when it comes to the park's nighttime spectacular, Fantasmic, since the hours for this big performance are going to change pretty regularly. Fantasmic might happen earlier in the evening, it might happen later in the evening, and it might even happen more than once in a single evening. So never ever ever rely on the show times that Fantasmic has used in the past when you were there, because there's a big chance they may not be relevant during this visit. Instead, check your My Disney Experience app at the very beginning of the day so you can learn the real show times and not accidentally miss out because you're relying on outdated information. And by the way, let me just recommend that you should always attend the second showing of Fantasmic if there is one. If you check that My Disney Experience schedule and there are 2 Fantasmic showings on the day you're there, try to prioritize the second one. Typically, more folks flock toward the first Fantasmic showing of the night so that they can wrap up their day and get the kids to bed a little earlier. That means the second showing tends to be a lot less crowded and less chaotic to leave the theater once it concludes. Plus, you might be able to slip in 1 or 2 more extra rides before the second showtime for a potentially shorter wait, since the thick of the crowds are going to be over in Sunset Boulevard experiencing the first Fantasmic show. And of course, check for closures. This is just always a good idea for any of the parks, but especially for studios, which really sees its fair share of ride and attraction closures and downtime all year long. So what closures can you expect in this park currently? Well, the previous voyage of the Little Mermaid show is now officially closed to make way for that refreshed Little Mermaid show coming this fall. Rock and Roller Coaster is just about to reopen after their extended refurbishment, so expect this ride to be up and running once again starting on July 27th, but heads up that if you're going next year, if you're going in 2025, it'll probably be closed again for a bunch of months for maintenance too. It's also a good idea to check for Skyliner closures toward the beginning of the year if you're planning on relying on that mode of transportation to get you to and from the park. Since, as history has it so far, the Skyliner tends to have regular closures toward the last week of January for refurbishments. This year, the Disney Skyliner was shut down from January 16th to the 21st, and in 2023 it was closed from January 22nd through January 29th. Now, as you want to do in Hollywood, prioritize the bigwigs. Hollywood Studios is full of heavy hitter rides and attractions that can rack up super long wait times. So you're going to want to make sure you create a game plan for getting on said rides before you're dropped into the streets of Hollywood. We're going to sprinkle in tips and tricks throughout the course of this video to help you pull this off, but let me give you a quick rundown for what the average wait times tend to look like. Your lowest ride waits of the day will most likely be over at Alien Swirling Saucers and Toy Story Land and Star Tours and Echo Lake. If you see either of these attractions pushing over a 20-minute wait during your visit, pass on it for now and return later when the lines die down, because they should die down on a normal crowd level day. Rides like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and Hollywood Boulevard, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run and Galaxy's Edge, and Toy Story Mania in Toy Story Land can have high waits, but on average, you're probably looking at a 30 to 45-minute wait. Then over on Sunset Boulevard, you got the big thrill attractions, Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, which can definitely have longer waits, especially toward the middle of the day. And then you got the highest ride wait times of the park. These are the real heavy hitters, Slinky Dog Dash in Toy Story Land and Rise of the Resistance in Galaxy's Edge. We're looking at 60 to 90 plus minutes throughout the year, so knowing how to bypass the thick of those crowds before you encounter them is going to put you at a major advantage, and we're going to help you out throughout the video. Don't forget to use your hotel privileges at Hollywood Studios. How can you potentially bypass those major crowds for Rise of the Resistance and Slinky Dog Dash? Told you we'd get back to it. If you're a Disney World hotel guest, you'll have the privilege of being able to enter the parks 30 minutes early before the general public. It's called early entry. And for deluxe hotel guests, you'll also have the extra privilege of extended evening hours, which is available on select nights at select parks and gives you the chance to hang out for like 2 extra hours after the park closes for everyone else, giving you an even better chance of getting on these rides without all the extra crowds clogging up the queue lines. However, unlike early theme park entry, extended evening hours are not available every single day. You're going to need to check the Disney World website's park calendar ahead of time to make sure your vacation lines up with those Hollywood Studios extended evening hours. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot of money for a deluxe stay, but you'll wind up missing out on the best deluxe resort benefits. All right, it's time to talk shortcuts. The good thing about navigating Hollywood Studios is that it's a pretty straight shot to everything you're trying to get to. The bad thing is that the pathways around this park are pretty narrow and more prone to bottlenecks. So let's take a look at the Hollywood Studios map real quick so we can see what we're dealing with here, especially if you're going to be one of the many people who makes their way over to Galaxy's Edge first thing in the morning. When you first enter the park, you're going to walk right down the middle of Hollywood Boulevard, which will lead you to the front of the Grauman's Chinese Theater replica. From here, you'll have 2 choices. You can go left at the theater or right. If you go right, you'll technically be taking the shortest path possible to Galaxy's Edge. The only problem with this route is that it's on the same path that you're going to need to take to get over to Toy Story Land too. So while it should be faster, it can sometimes actually be slower thanks to all the crowds. If your goal is to avoid crowds and reclaim your personal space, you may want to turn left at the theater instead and take the Echo Lake path. Yep, this is the longer way around, taking you past 50's Primetime Cafe, Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and the entirety of Grand Avenue, but it's typically not going to be as crowded, which will play more in your favor. Okay, you're not going to hear us make this recommendation for every park, but we're going to do it for this one. Buy Genie Plus. Hollywood Studios is one of the parks where you can get a lot of mileage out of a Genie Plus purchase. Every ride inside the park has a lightning lane, but that being said, you can only use the lightning lane for Rise of the Resistance by purchasing it separately from Disney Genie Plus, since it uses one of those individual lightning lanes. That's going to cost you a pay per ride of about $15 to $25 per person. Other than that one ride though, all the other lightning lanes are available for you to snag on the regular Genie Plus lineup. Now, I'd highly recommend getting Slinky Dog Dash as your first lightning lane of the day if that's a priority ride for you, since those lightning lanes do tend to book up pretty quickly. Genie Plus can be purchased as early as midnight the day of your visit, but you can't start making lightning lane selections until 7 a.m. Meanwhile, individual lightning lanes, like the one for Rise of the Resistance, can be made or purchased as early as 7 a.m. if you're a Disney Hotel guest. But for all other guests, you're going to have to wait until the park opens before you can make your individual lightning lane selection. We've got tons of Genie Plus tips and hacks for you, and we got an entire playlist of videos for you to watch before your trip so you can be an expert and get the most out of your Genie Plus purchase. Something else you should always do in Disney's Hollywood Studios is park hop the right way. To really maximize both your park hopper and Disney Genie Plus purchase, here's what we like to do. First, we purchase the multi-park Genie Plus option, which will give you the chance to book lightning lanes across multiple parks. Then we start our day off in Epcot, taking things pretty leisurely. As we explore the rides and shops and festival booths here when available, we can also keep making lightning lane selections for our Hollywood Studios rides when we hop over there. Even though you can only book one ride at a time, you can select a new lightning lane every 2 hours, even if you haven't used the last one yet. This means if you play your cards right, after you finish up at Epcot, you can jump on the Skyliner and head over to Hollywood Studios for the second half of your day, where you'll already have lots of lightning lanes collected and ready for you to use back to back. We're playing chess here, friends, not checkers. This is called stacking your lightning lanes, and we highly recommend it for this park. So don't get so starstruck by the main attractions that you miss out on the supporting roles of this park, because there are some really cool areas and experiences that aren't as popular but still provide you with an awesome time. For example, the Star Wars data pad, which you can access through the free Play Disney Parks app, will give you the chance to interact with Galaxy's Edge in a way that doesn't require any wait times or lines. You'll be able to hack into technology, eavesdrop on Batuu citizens, translate the Arabesh language, and collect lots of interesting cargo. If you're feeling a little rebellious, you can kick Hondo Ohnaka out of the cockpit and put Chewie in charge of your Millennium Falcon adventure over at Smuggler's Run, too. To pull this off, you'll need to have all 6 members of your team work together to activate Chewie mode. Before the ride starts, do not activate your position right away. Instead, have the left and right pilots push their controls to the far left or right and far up or down. Once the pilots have done that, then they should push their activation button. Meanwhile, the engineers and gunners sitting behind the pilots need to hit one of the white buttons on their console before hitting the orange activation button. Once the cast members give the all clear to launch, you'll start hearing Chewbacca yell at you throughout the entirety of the ride, so I hope you brushed up on your Wookiee speak. And at the end of the night, you can watch the projection show Wonderful World of Animation happen on the Grauman's Chinese Theater. This features sequences celebrating iconic moments from beloved Disney films like Sleeping Beauty, The Incredibles, Coco, and more. So while there are lots of heavy hitters in Hollywood Studios, there are also some secrets in this park that we don't want you to miss out on. Next, it's time to eat somewhere totally different. It's easy to get stuck in a rut when you find a Disney restaurant that worked well enough for you the first time around. I mean, why play it adventurous when you could play it safe and not have to gamble on potentially paying steep price points for mediocre meals? I get it. But there's actually quite a few Hollywood Studios restaurants out there that you might be missing out on if you decide to stick with the same old every time you visit. That's why we created our DFB Guide to Walt Disney World Dining in the first place. To make all the mistakes so you don't have to, and to help you crawl out of that rut and find a new restaurant to fall in love with. We've been to all of them many times. So this guide is super useful and super honest about the things we love and the things we don't love about all these various restaurants. It's a 3-part digital guide, and it talks about every single restaurant on property, Hollywood Studios included. It features price ranges, updated hours of operation, pros and cons for each place, recommended dishes to order, full reviews, dining hacks, and more. So if you want to pick up a guide for yourself, swing by dfbstore.com and make sure to type in code YouTube for some extra savings on your total purchase. In the meantime, let me show you just a handful of the places we like to eat in Hollywood Studios whenever we come to visit. For something quick, we head to Backlot Express over in Echo Lake. It's a quick service, safe haven for us, and this restaurant is themed to look like a production warehouse. It offers classic counter service entrees like burgers, sandwiches, and salads, and of course, I always get the chicken tenders here. Now, if you want something a little more adventurous and space-themed, Docking Bay 7 in Galaxy's Edge is a counter service that prepares regional delicacies like fried Andorian chicken tip yip and smoked Kaju ribs. Don't worry, the food names sound funny, but the items themselves have familiar ingredients, so you don't have to take a step too far out of your taste buds' comfort zone. For something high-end, we like to make reservations for Hollywood Brown Derby, which is a replica of the famous Hollywood landmark restaurant. While advanced dining reservations are highly recommended since this restaurant can book up pretty quickly, especially during peak season times, you can also try to drink and dine at the Hollywood Brown Derby Lounge instead, which has walk-up availability only. But note that this is an outdoor location. While you are sitting under umbrellas, if it's 100 degrees outside, it's going to be 100 degrees at the lounge. For something with a little more novelty, the Sci-Fi Dine-In puts you in the seats of a convertible-styled table to watch silly, mid-century B-movie clips highlighting zombies and blob monsters, all while you munch on meals made up of diner classics like burgers and ribs and shakes and fries. And Roundup Rodeo Barbecue over in Toy Story Land shrinks you down to the size of a toy, where you're going to dine on family-style barbecue classics inside a really colorful setting, all while trying to evade Andy's line of vision. Novelty restaurants and signature dining sound like a good time. The only problem is that these table service locations can book up real fast, because everyone else thinks that getting yelled at by their servers in 50s Primetime Cafe or watching cheesy black and white film clips at Sci-Fi Dine-In sounds like a pretty good time too. Good thing Disney's recently made booking advanced dining reservations a whole lot easier. Now, you can view dining availability for multiple days of your trip at a time via the My Disney Experience app and the Disney World website. I have been waiting a long time for this change, and I'm so glad it's here. This means that within a single search, you can see available dining reservations for any given restaurant for up to 10 days out. This is going to give you a whole lot more flexibility when it comes to planning meals throughout your entire trip, and for people like me who basically book their trip around their dining, it's going to make life much easier. For example, let's say I was originally planning on going to Hollywood Studios on a Monday, and I wanted to make absolutely sure I got the chance to dine at Roundup Rodeo Barbecue when I was there. Unfortunately, all the Roundup reservations seem to be booked up solid on that Monday. Curses foiled again. But what is this I see? Because I can see Roundup Rodeo availability for 10 days across my entire trip and then some, there's a solid possibility I might find lingering reservations for that Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday instead. If that's the case, I can still lock in those reservations for a different day and just switch my itinerary around a little to accommodate the change. Easy as pie or barbecue. Trying not to contradict myself here or anything, but there are some snacks I always tend to gravitate back to while I'm in Hollywood Studios. I can't help it because I just love them. I'll spare you from me gabbing on and on about the hundreds of snacks that I love here because we've got a lot of them listed in the DFB Guide to Walt Disney World Dining, but let's shout out a few tried and true favorites just for old time's sake. The Carrot Cake Cookie at Trolley Car Cafe. It's a classic DFB iconic snack that we've had a fickle relationship with over the past decade, but we're all friends again now. We're on again in our relationship. This dessert is loaded with tons of yummy cream cheese frosting sandwiched between two delicious cake-like carrot cake cookies, so it's more of a whoopie pie kind of situation. The Toffee and Coconut Blondie was introduced to us during Disney World's 50th anniversary celebration. It was one of the only things that wasn't blue tinged, and we are so glad that it has stuck around this long, even if it's not called the Shimmer and Glimmer Blondie anymore. This treat is made of gooey toffee and a toasted coconut blondie topped off with salted caramel buttercream, and I'm telling you, every single time I send a new reporter to get this, they come back absolutely loving it, so I know that you will too. While it tends to vagabond a lot between different quick service locations, the last place we've seen it was at Catalina Eddie's in Sunset Boulevard. And over at Fairfax Fair, we're pretty big fans of the waffle bowls you can pick up here, especially the ones layered with those fluffy mashed potatoes and other savory ingredients. Now, if you can only choose one place to order plastic cheese, choose Hollywood Studios. If you've ever gotten plastic cheese at Disney World and thought to yourself, you know, life is good, but it could be better, we've just discovered the better. At Backlot Express, you get cups of plastic cheese. Those of you who don't know what plastic cheese is, I coined this term years and years and years and years and years ago. It's kind of that liquidy cheese that you get at the ballpark with your nachos, or sometimes you get the cheese sauce on things. But it's basic. I call it plastic cheese because I'm not sure there's actually any real food in there, but it's delicious and I love it. Anyway, at Backlot Express, you can get cups of plastic cheese that are nearly twice the size of the cheese at other restaurants. No kidding. This quick service serves its cheese in white paper cups, which are way bigger than what you get inside the other 3 parks for that $1 price tag most of the time. And y'all wonder why I like this quick service so much. It just keeps giving me more and more reasons to fall in love with it. Okay, coming to you live, DFB is exposing the best top secret toilets inside of Hollywood Studios. When you gotta go, like real bad, the last thing you want is a restroom that you feel like you need a lightning lane for, which is why we tend to gravitate toward these private bathrooms, somewhat private bathrooms, instead of the ones along the main drag. Bathroom number 1, the one near Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy. This is already pretty tucked away out of sight, but hopefully not out of mind if your kids are big Pixar Cars fans, because this show is short and cute and has a cool Lightning McQueen animatronic that makes the whole experience worthwhile. So it only makes sense that the restrooms near here stay pretty quiet throughout the day too. Nobody really knows about this place. Bathroom number 2, before you enter the park. Right outside of security, there's a set of Hollywood Studios bathrooms to the left of the entrance. They're usually very quiet and they are huge with plenty of stalls inside. These are the perfect stop on your way in and out of the park, especially if you want to avoid the wildly busy restrooms that are available right as you enter into Hollywood Boulevard. Now, these restrooms are probably a little bit busier right at the beginning of the day and right at the end of the day because they facilitate the folks coming in and out from the tram stop, but in the middle of the day, nobody in there. With all those epic rides to experience, you're going to want to make sure you have the best ride seats to get the full impact of each attraction, right? So we're going to fill you in on which ride seats you need to be requesting when you are in Hollywood Studios. Note that you totally can ask cast members if you want to wait for a specific ride row or seat. Typically that's okay, but this strategy isn't always a guarantee depending on the day. So if a cast member for some reason can't fulfill your request at a location, don't feel like you can't ask for those preferred seats at other locations. Never hurts to ask and check, even if the answer turns out to be no every now and then. Because don't forget, these cast members are trying to get people into that attraction, get through those long lines, and if everybody was asking, I want to sit in a certain row, then that would be a nightmare. So just kind of read the room. If the cast member is like busy and harried, don't even ask. But if it's kind of a slow day, then absolutely. Okay, for Slinky Dog Dash, the very back of the coaster is going to give you a more thrilling experience because you've got the momentum of the rest of the cars in front of you pulling you along. The very front of the ride, on the other hand, tends to feel slower and kind of blocks your view pretty spectacularly thanks to that giant Slinky Dog head. For Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, just try to avoid sitting in the very back car if possible. Not only do you have to sit behind all those heads in front of you, but your car is the last one to get into each room, meaning many of the show scenes will have already started by the time your vehicle gets there. For Rock and Roller Coaster, unlike Slinky, I personally prefer the very front row of this coaster, or at least getting as close to the front as possible. Even with the refurb, Rock and Roller Coaster will more than likely still be pretty jolting with all its twists and turns and upside down loop-de-loops, so sitting toward the front of the vehicle can create a smoother ride experience for you, and it's also very cool to be at that front of that very fast launch. And for Star Tours, if you're wanting to be the Rebel Spy, the best seat is, well, there is no best seat to guarantee this because it's always chosen at random. However, the front row of this ride will toss you around a little less than the back of the ride, which makes it better for those prone to motion sickness. So if you are ready for some big time celebrities, here's where to meet characters you won't see other places. Hollywood Studios has a lot of meet and greet opportunities for characters you may not get the chance to interact with in other parks. For example, you can find Olaf giving warm hugs over at Celebrity Spotlight in Echo Lake. The Disney Junior Pals take turns hanging out in the courtyard. Star Wars Launch Bay is a place where you can often meet BB-8 and Chewbacca or Darth Vader if he isn't off doing other menacing things. Ariel from the live-action version of The Little Mermaid greets guests inside Walt Disney Presents. Pixar Plaza is a section of the park where you can see lots of the Incredibles team, from Edna to Mr. and Mrs. Incredible to Frozone as well. You can also see other Pixar friends here like Sully from Monsters, Inc. and Joy from Inside Out just got here too. Toy Story Land has plenty of free roaming toys gallivanting throughout, like Buzz, Woody, and Jessie, and popular Star Wars characters can also be seen strolling around the planet of Batuu back in Galaxy's Edge. Now, here's a pro DFB tip for you. Rare Disney characters might make an appearance over on Grand Avenue by the entrance to Galaxy's Edge, so don't forget to check around here during your day just in case a familiar face decides to pop in for a visit. You may also spot some pals from time to time around Echo Lake and in front of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. If you want to do those premium experiences out in Batuu, like Savi's Workshop to build your own lightsaber and Droid Depot to build your own robo-friend, or Oga's Cantina to not build something, but instead try some otherworldly cocktails, then you're going to need to make sure you secure reservations for these experiences just like you would for one of the restaurants. You can start making those reservations 60 days before your trip. Again, just like the restaurants. However, there is something you need to know about those build your own Star Wars souvenir experiences when it comes to the cancellation policies. When you make reservations for these experiences, you'll have to make them with a credit card. Originally, your card wouldn't be charged until you checked in for the experience, but back in April this year, that rule changed. Now you have to prepay for the experiences at Savi's Workshop and Droid Depot when you make your reservation through the Disney World website or My Disney Experience app. Unlike most Disney dining reservations, if you need to cancel your build, you must do so at least 24 hours before it was supposed to take place. If you don't, you will forfeit that prepayment you made, which is a lot of money to lose and wind up with nothing in the end. If you do cancel your reservation at least 24 hours before, your credit card will be refunded the full amount you paid. When you ride Toy Story Mania over in Toy Story Land, you don't want to get off that ride feeling like you totally dropped the ball. You want to come out on top with the highest score in the vehicle, so we have some cheat codes for you. In order to pull it off, you're going to need to rely on these point racking strategies. Number 1, don't stress over accuracy. Sure, it's better to actually hit the targets that you're aiming for, but your overall accuracy isn't going to affect your final score. You can have terrible accuracy percentage and still rack up 200 to 300,000 points that'll push your way up to the best in vehicle rankings. So fire like the wind, Bullseye. Strategy number 2, aim for the squigglies. During the Rex and Trixie's Dino Darts game, find the little squiggly balloons that are supposed to represent lava spewing out of the volcano. Once you hit them all, the volcano is going to release an eruption of balloons, and if you clear all these, some other sneaky targets with higher points on either side of the screen are going to pop up to reward you. Strategy number 3, watch for flying plates. At the top of the screen between the mountain and hills, you might spy some higher scoring plates flying into view, ready for you to target. One comes in on an airplane, and others will fly up through the air before dropping back down again. If you can hit them all, a big tank's going to come in with lots more plates to break. Oh, and this one is my recent favorite. When you're playing that ring toss with the aliens, if you can ring all the aliens at once, that robot is going to open up and give you a ton of point opportunities. Now, I was pretty proud of myself because when I was in Tokyo Disney recently, I was riding all by myself and I still did that. My goodness, because I'm not good at this ride at all. But hopefully you are. And now that you've got that high score in the bag, it is time to wear a t-shirt that flaunts your success. We got a brand new shirt on dfbstore.com that'll be the perfect wardrobe addition for a Toy Story Mania champion such as yourself. This design comes in several different styles and colors and sizes to make sure it's the right fit for you. So Hollywood Studios is such a busy, packed park the majority of the time, so it's good to know where the less busy sections are for you to catch a breather and feel like you're not constantly rubbing elbows with everybody. One of my favorite spots to escape is Star Wars Launch Bay over in Animation Courtyard. This spot is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and inside you're going to find lots of air conditioning and Star Wars memorabilia, costumes, models, props. Even for you non-Star Wars fans out there though, this place is so low-key and quiet, which is the exact opposite vibe that you're going to get from Galaxy's Edge, that I know you're going to enjoy being in here even if you don't know what's going on at all. Another quiet gem tends to be the Muppet Vision 3D show. Sure, the pre-show room can get pretty packed at times, but otherwise the theater itself is plenty spacious and doesn't make you feel super claustrophobic, like you might feel during Fantasmic when you're surrounded by thousands of people on those thin metal bleachers. Plus, Muppet Vision is adorable. Dated, sure, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And keeping up with the Muppets theming, the second floor of Pizza Rizzo quick service is like a rat pizza oasis. Sure, you may not want to eat here for those personal puffy pizzas, which are pretty mediocre at best, but if you grab a beer and a pretzel from Baseline Tap House across the way, and the limited seating over there is already filled up, you can always take your snacks up to the Pizza Rizzo balcony and nobody's gonna bat an eye. Okay, you know how I said just now that Galaxy's Edge is anything but low-key and quiet? Well, there's actually a time when all grows still on the planet of Batuu, and that's when the sun goes down. While I do like visiting Galaxy's Edge during the day, there's just something about seeing it all lit up and way less crowded at night that feels very special and otherworldly to me. So much so that it's almost worth skipping Fantasmic if you want some super awesome lightsaber shots in front of the Millennium Falcon with way less photobombers in the background. The ride lines in Galaxy's Edge tend to be way more chill for these attractions towards the end of the night as well. And I don't know why, but I just love wandering through the marketplace at night. The lighting is so cool and it just, I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm on a real movie set. And since we're on the subject of seeing the park at night, hang around Hollywood Boulevard for a while longer with me to see this strip of shops at its prime. Much like Main Street USA and Magic Kingdom, the shops down Hollywood Boulevard will stay open for a little while after everything else closes up for the night. That being said, most guests tend to just make a beeline for the exit and call it a day. Before you do the same, get some pictures on that empty Hollywood Boulevard strip, which will give you a clear shot of the Grauman's Chinese Theater all lit up in the background. Seriously, I do this every time I'm wrapping up my Hollywood Studios day, and I always love how the pictures turn out. Not to mention, if you stick around the Hollywood Strip till even the shops start to close, you won't have to worry about the thick exiting crowds nearly as much for the buses, the boat, the parking lot, or the Skyliner. Before you step foot into Hollywood Studios, you need to take stock of who you're actually traveling here with, because your travel group is going to determine your best course of action for so many decisions. Need a springboard to work with? In our free Hollywood Studios quick guide, we actually have a couple of sample itineraries to get you started on your perfect day in Hollywood Studios. This quick guide also features ride height guides, show summaries, advice on how to get to the park, and lots of other tips and tricks you can keep with you at all times. And did I mention it's free? It's free. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen now or head to disneyfoodblog.com/Hollywood Studios after this, and we'll get that quick guide sent to you right away. Okay, Hollywood Studios is a park where if you're not careful, you will be at it nonstop all day long. Rides, shows, more shows, wash, rinse, repeat. Don't forget to schedule in breaks for when your group's starting to wear down on you or when you're starting to wear down. It's also not a bad idea to build in a little Skyliner escape in your day and go ahead and enjoy a meal outside the park and over at one of the Skyliner resorts instead. I can't tell you how many times Hollywood Studios has just been way too busy for me, so I Skylinered myself over to Le Petit Cafe in the Riviera for a beverage and a little afternoon pastry, or I went to Caribbean Beach for a nice pick-me-up at Banana Cabana, or I kept on going over to Epcot to stroll around the resorts over there, like Boardwalk Inn and Yacht and Beach Club. It's okay to wave a little white flag when the park's getting to be too chaotic and hot and crowded. After a couple of hours at one of the much more chill resorts, you can just head back over and enjoy the rest of your evening inside Hollywood Studios when the sea of people and the temperature has dropped down a bit. Between waiting in long lines, shuffling through bottlenecked pathways, and attempting to squeeze all your stuff in those miserably tiny pockets in front of your ride seat, it is not worth purchasing souvenirs at the start of your Hollywood Studios day, unless you're planning on renting a locker at the front of the park to store them in. To avoid the hassle of carrying that awkward and bulky stuff around with you for hours on end, plan on buying souvenirs once you've got all your other must-dos checked off your list. Do it during that few minutes that you're staying past the rest of the crowds and doing your shopping on Hollywood Boulevard. That way, the only place you'll have to carry your new merch is back to your hotel room. Okay, I hope you are like me and Runaway Railway and that giant cheese cup are calling your name right now. But before you head out, don't forget that we've got that free Hollywood Studios quick guide with sample itineraries included over at disneyfoodblog.com/Hollywood Studios. We can send it to you faster than you can say, may the force be with you. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.